My name is Brianne H. Williams. I'm a licensed professional counselor in the state of Oregon. I work with individual adults as well as couples, and the focus of my work is on grief, loss, trauma, and the way stress affects our mind, body, and spirit. Internal family systems is the main method I use as a therapist. And if you aren't already familiar with that modality, I would strongly recommend starting with another video I made called Brief Introduction to Internal Family Systems. So this video assumes that folks already have a basic understanding of the way all this works. A quick disclaimer, as always, this video is not meant to be therapy itself, even though I'm a therapist and I'm talking about therapeutic concepts. So what I'm hoping this video can do is to spark some more understanding of the way IFS might see the answer to different questions, and ultimately the goal is to spark better self-understanding. If you ask 10 different therapists the same question, you will get 10 different answers. So I want to approach this humbly, like this is just my 2 cents, but this video is rooted in a real question that one of my clients has asked me about IFS as they were doing parts work. And I hope that this can be a start of a video series about answering many questions people might be wondering as they begin to sink in. So the question I'll be answering today is, are parts telling me the truth? And I think this is just such a smart question to ask, and I'd love to unpack it with an example or two, the way I think of this. And so what I would say is that the question is not so much whether the part is telling the truth about what's going on or not, and more about recognizing that every individual part only has limited information about what's going on. And so the story the part is telling us is based in a narrower view of what is happening, and our self energy is capable of seeing a much more expanded way of recognizing what's up. And so this is a common therapy image that comes up, but it's kind of like a part is driving on a remote highway at night, and that part, they can only see what's in the headlights. And so maybe they can turn the high beams on to see a little bit further, but the view is really limited to just so many yards ahead of the car. So if you're asking that part about the scenery miles away, what the view is, that part can only really answer what's right there. And when our self energy comes online, is kind of like the sun comes up over the horizon, and then we can see, oh my gosh, well, there's other parts driving on other sections of road, and they can see whole different things. And from our self energy, we can see just like, oh, there were mountains in the distance that we weren't able to tell were there when it was, just dark out. So it's sort of like parts are able to see from their perspective only, and only really what's right there. So it might not be that they don't have some truthful information. They may be observing something really directly, but we got to check the story about it, because it's likely not the fullest version of the story. So I would say the question is less about truthfulness and more about fullness. There may be parts that absolutely overt lie to us about what's happening. That's possible. That is completely not what's happening. But a lot of times I think parts are earnest in the messages that they're telling us about what's happening. It's just that the expansion isn't necessarily there. So just with 2 examples, let's first say like there's a manager part, really focus on the trust of another person in like let's say a work environment. So let's say this manager part is really focused on the trustworthiness of a coworker or a boss, and this part is really proactively kind of monitoring that other person's behaviors, their actions, their words. And this part is thinking we need to make sure we don't trust this person. Maybe we even need to get out of this environment. I don't know. Like, it's not safe for us here. The part may actually be observing some actions, words from that other person that are not trust inspiring. Maybe that person over there is operating from their own parts led motivations. And so it's really that the self can hear that and be less activated, perhaps, as a way of saying it, by the information that's going on. Maybe able to take in perspective of all the parts. So we've got this manager part being like, don't trust this person, what are they up to? Like those thoughts are really present. And we also might be hearing from other parts in our self energy, that expanded view, that are like, well, maybe that doesn't change anything for me, even if that's happening. Maybe it's not as much of a threat as it feels to this one part. And maybe it is time to get out of this job. Maybe there are things about it that don't feel self-aligned, that it's not going to be possible to be comfortable in this environment and do my best work. Or maybe it's a more complicated question. Well, there's certain benefits to this job, either financially, or I get to be creative here, or whatever. And so that self can kind of see the full landscape, all of the things around, and hear from all the perspectives. But that part, when that part is chatting with us, might only see, oh my gosh, did you see what so-and-so said in that meeting? I can't believe they said that, and I need to get out of here. And so I also can imagine a part or parts, a set of parts, let's say maybe more in that firefighter realm. Maybe we're sitting at home and we don't really want to be with our feelings, any of those exiled parts. Maybe we're feeling a little lonely, a little down, a little sad. And so our firefighter comes in like, ooh, online shopping would sound really nice right now. And maybe, like, again, it's not so much about the truthfulness of it. It might give us a great dopamine hit when that part's like, oh, you need that, put that in your shopping cart. Oh, get that delivered, so again, it's not about moralizing online shopping. It's just that right then, that is a single part telling us a story about what's going to make us feel better, how to get our needs met. And again, there's a much more expanded horizon. Anyone who has done online shopping in the last many years has probably at least once purchased something in the moment, and then later they see it in their closet or in their kitchen or wherever it is in their home, and they are like, why did I buy that? This isn't what I thought it would be, or I didn't really need that. And so again, like, there isn't necessarily a fullness of story when that part is like, you need that, this is gonna make you feel better or solve blank problem or whatever. So I hope those are 2 helpful examples of the way parts are not necessarily not telling the truth, but that there could be a fuller picture, that when we practice that self-led daily way of being in the world, we can hear the parts and what they're saying better. We can acknowledge them. We can take in that they're trying to get our needs met, trying to keep us safe, and we can sort of stay in the leadership place okay, I've thought about online shopping 20 times in the last 20 minutes, so maybe I need to sit down and meditate or journal or have a good cry, you know. So there could be some other options that would help those vulnerable ones inside get their needs met in a more sustainable long-term way. But again, the parts in the moment might be just telling us an immediate story about what's happening. So again, I hope that this video can be the first of many videos in which I unpack questions about the way we might understand something through an internal family systems lens. And so if you've got questions about IFS, either understanding the model better or the way to apply it to a certain situation, please feel free to add that question in the comments here, or reach out to me directly over email, or message me through my website, and I would be very glad to consider your question. Thank you so much, and may you have a peaceful rest of your day.